There you go.
Hey there. I am here with WKDW Real Talk Radio with John Rawlings with hair today. John is actually called me last minute and said, "Hey, I have a radio show to do on Friday. Do you think you could take it?" Because he was called at the last minute to host a wedding. It was a very important wedding, so I said, "Okay." The beers are really collecting that he's adding to what he owes me so far. So, with us today is our guest, our great guest who comes on all the time. It is Peter Bartollota. So,
How you
Pete,
doing?
how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful
How it
day in sunny Northport.
isn't it? How was Thanksgiving?
It was really good.
Yeah.
We spent it with Eileen's children up in Orlando. The drive
Mm-hmm.
was a little bit much, but other than that, the food was fantastic. Family was great. It was a fantastic day.
The drive. That is the worst part, isn't
Oh
it?
yeah.
Ugh,
Oh yeah.
yeah. But as much as you guys have been to Orlando and back, I think you're probably used to it by now, right?
I can do it blindfolded now.
Yeah. Anyways, Pete, tell me, what have you been up to? What's been up to lately?
Nothing much. Same old. Keeping an eye on what's going on in Northport. Always
So,
exciting things. I think the
did
new
you get?
city manager looks like he's going to be a winner.
I really
Um,
like
a
them.
lot.
Yeah.
I'm hearing really good things about him.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing Northport grow and become the city that it's meant to be.
So, did you get to see last month's or last week? I think it was last week's meeting. They did the road and drainage district, and they made a determination to look at expanding what's right now a transfer station for recyclables, being solid waste or sorry waste, yard waste, as well as like plastics and stuff. And they're going to try and expand that area um, for now waste, now actual trash, to be a a station. So they talked about two things, and the first thing that brought you to my mind right away was the P3. They're
Okay.
talking about a P3.
Wow.
Only took
Okay.
6 years, right?
Oh, it's been a
Ay
while.
vey, right?
You know. You
So,
know.
anyways, they're go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, that was one thing. They're talking about a P3, so they're talking about trying to get some extra land, and the P3 would be a public entity that actually came in. I believe it'd be like a land lease deal. Of course, there's not everything's really worked out yet,
Sure.
and they're going to put it the infrastructure. So we would own the land, the city would own the land, the corporation would come in, and I assume it would be a land lease. They would create the infrastructure. They put all the particular types of devices that they need. They're looking at specifically, well, the commission as an overall would really like the more up-to-date type of station where it kind of is like they're almost like little vaults that it goes underground, the waste trash. And then what happens is that they come out and they grab it. So this particular private side would be the ones who own the trucks, grab the stuff, take it to from point A to point B, come back, grab the next one. So I just thought that that was pretty wild. Of course, on the other side of things, that station, it's all devil's in the details, when you do a contract and they'd
Uh,
have to make a determination that if they stop services or if they just chose to close up one day, that the land would revert back to the city. But they're talking about it. They're doing their due diligence. They're looking at maybe possibly purchasing properties around the current location, which is out in Yorkshire, which happens
okay.
to be our activity center that we are looking at trying to run the water and sewer. So two things run through my mind, and I want to get your opinion on this. First and foremost, if this goes through, they're going to run electricity. Now, this is kind of like right in the middle of the Yorkshire hook. It kind of makes a U. and it's not, I think it's Blue Leaf. It's either Blue Leaf or Silver Leaf, but in that area. And so it's not right up on 75, and it's not right up on Price. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so by running that electricity line all the way from Price up to, say, middle part of this entire activity center, you know how much relief that is going to be for those who need to hook into it? Because it's like 300,000 for the city to run it.
So are they?
Because that's why that place.
Okay. Are they? Is it a transfer station? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I always wondered, instead of a transfer, why not go to waste to energy plant and let's create our own electricity here in Northport? Let the trucks come in with the garbage, burn the garbage, and let the city become its own electric utility, hopefully offering the electricity at a better price than they can with when the private side. So you got all this,
Which is,
to just
I love the
transfer
idea.
You got to put it down, then you got to pick it up. It's like food shopping, right? You go to your car, you get out of your cars, you go into the food store, you get a cart, you fill the cart, you empty the cart to check out. Then if we're doing this, why not burn it? And they can burn right now, I understand, at a heat that is so intense that there is virtually no residue. So, I mean, I'd like to see Northport take a look at some futuristic approaches to it. I had a long conversation with a guy named Lee Pallady, who owns the property on the corner of Toledo and the interstate. Yeah. And he's the one that introduced me to that. He goes, Peter, this is it's the future, and somebody around here is going to wind up doing it. And I'd rather than be the transfer station, I'd rather be the supplier of the electricity.
Well, I can tell you right now that the state of Florida does not like it when government creates utilities. You know that. So it would have to be a private kind of sector, a P3 essentially. Someone would have to come in and do it.
Yeah, and I think an interesting approach to that is forming a co-op. Get the local businesses and to partner into this, create a co-op, and give the city a kickback, which they're doing in other places with internet and other utility type services. So
if you think about it, the kickback would be that the city's getting free services for dropping off the waste.
There you go.
I mean, there's the kickback right there. That's not hard to figure out because, the amount of money that's being used right now, because every time we take that trash up to Sarasota County, I got to stop saying we. Every time the city takes the trash up to Sarasota County, it costs money. And the fees are going up higher and higher and higher. And the biggest problem why this transfer station has been needed for about 25 years, actually, is that the trucks are so, you can only have so much of a size truck to go through the neighborhoods. So essentially that truck has to either go straight to the dump, or it's got to go to another truck, which is 3 times as large. And as soon as that truck fills, that goes to the dump. Yeah. Or it has to go to a transfer station where the trucks are continuously flowing, maybe 3 times out of 7 days. So there's different variety. But if we have to keep going on the road every single day, you see how between the mileage, the cost, more trucks, place is still growing, more people, more infrastructure, capital improvements are not, they're not going to make it. So I don't know. I think, I'm kind of up in the air because the whole idea of trash being out in Yorkshire right around, the lake and the park area really irks me. But if they do something.
Yeah, and I think the transfer station the conversation started around that, but take it one step further. What do you do with trash? You basically build mountains on it or bury it, and you hope that over time it's going to, go away.
Right.
Well, at some point, somebody is going to figure out this is not sustainable. You can't keep doing that unless you start putting, the next thing you know, the transfer station in Northport is shipping all the way up to Tampa. So instead of that, why don't you stop it in Northport? Let everybody bring us their garbage and let us burn it and create energy. And then we can.
I think the
fund Northport.
only, you know, how me, I have to look at both sides because I love it, but there would have to be a control of how much. I think that you would have to do it just for Northport, but I don't know, you know, you have to determine how much trash do you need to make X amount of energy. Would it be obtainable just by the 2,000 tons a year that we're doing now? Or oh, it's more than that. I take that back. It's way more than that. But it's an increase, I think they said, of 2,000 a year. You know, or is it something that you will have to go outside and really look at? And if that's the case, this location may not be the best place.
Exactly.
This location is based off of getting on the interstate to get to the dump.
So you know, and what I'd like to see Northport do is at least have the answer to that question, because that's a great question. But we should have the answer to that, because if it turns out that that is a better solution, then let's invest our money in the future, not in what is ultimately going to, it's not, a transfer station won't sustain itself. At some point, you're going to need more space. So you're just going to keep expanding it where? In a prime location. I mean, that's an activity center. That's our big activity center that everybody talks about, the future. And by the time we get it built, we won't have anything left there, which we've had a tendency in the past couple of years of doing that. We're giving away any of the opportunity we have to build. You know, the best thing I think would be, and the environmentalist, Bill English, if you're listening, don't call me. It's just the concept. What if you took a waste to energy plant and put it on an area of an environmentally sensitive piece of land? Orange Hammock is a good example. There are places there that are not environmentally sensitive. The cattle are eating on it, and they're building berms all over the place with the farmers, and you put it there. What a sign that would be, that you can peacefully coexist and actually create clean energy without disturbing the area, and Northport residents benefit because we have the lowest electrical cost of anywhere in the city. Let's figure out a way to do that.
I think that the last that we heard, there was over 200 acres of excess acreage that Swift Mud and them had purchased about within that Orange Hammock, and that they are calling it, shoot, it's at the tip of my tongue, but they're going to sell it. That's the bottom line. They're going to sell it. But why couldn't the city get in there and say, look, let's find a way to make this, you know, more useful and more equitable for our citizens? I love that. Well,
why didn't, you know, and I'm a big fan of Orange Hammock, not of selling it, but of Orange Hammock. And how did we give away? I wish you were there when this happened, Vanessa, because it never would have happened.
You know I wasn't.
We gave away 5,700 acres. We said to Swift Mud, who, by the way, controls our water, guys, we said, sure, you can have this because it creates a great water flow and it's all this other environmental stuff. How about you add to that just a simple little tagline that says, by the way, how about Northport residents get a discount? No, we didn't negotiate anything. We just gave it to them. Free of charge.
Well, not really. Like, what they did was they just wrote a letter of support, and I couldn't get anyone to understand the concept that if Peace River, Swift Mud, and conservation agencies all got together and purchased this land, ultimately Peace River was my biggest concern, because that's who we purchase our water from when our particular reserves they're not enough, or they need to be, you know, shifted over. We do shift over, just to be clear, we shift from Peace River water to city water just because of maintenance issues. You know, sometimes you need to shift to keep it clean. But point is that, you know, I kept trying to explain to them there's going to be excess lots and acreage here that they're just going to sell. Like, I don't think you understand. And if you go in there and say, we want a piece of the pie, and because of that piece of the pie, we'll give you X. But, and I even said it when they approved it. I said, you know what? Mark my words. What's going to happen? Peace River is going to run their water plant through this orange hammock, which is the exact reason why we allowed it to annex in the city, was for the water accessibility. So they are going to allow it to be an expansion of the Peace Water Reserve, and they will sell that water back to Northport at the same prime prices that they currently have, because guess what? It is the one board we don't have a representative on. We are there, but we have no voting rights.
Well, I got called in by the conservation group that brokered this deal. I'd love to know how much they got paid for that. But
they're a nonprofit, so I don't think they got a whole lot. They probably got like a market share, a percentage or something.
Whatever.
But
they got something. Was never disclosed.
I doubt very much.
But they called me and wanted me to support the sale, and I've been against that sale ever since they tried selling. Back to the government. I mean, I don't mind selling it in the private sector, but back to the government, you gave up the asset that we annexed it in for. And there were commissioners who said it didn't cost us anything. And I said, how can it not cost you anything? Yeah, right?
It may not cost us anything right now, but you can bet it's going to cost us down the road. That's for sure.
And it cost us something to annex in, and now we gave it away. So I said to her, what if you gave the city 500 of the 5,700 acres? Because one thing the city lacks is land that it owns itself, contiguous properties. And she said no. And there was a county commissioner in the meeting, who will remain nameless, who said, I thought that was a good idea. Then they called me back a week later with a guy that you will know, I won't mention names, who is a water engineer. And he's explaining to me how the water flows here and there and all of this kind of stuff. And I said, look, developers know how to keep the water flow. When they develop, they do things to maintain the water. So, and I said, and I made this up, Vanessa, I said, I know 2 people right now that are interested in developing on that 500 acres. This guy hands me his card when I left. He says, hey, Peter, have him give me a call. Yeah, exactly. So he was about as interested, but they were paying him for that advice. So, and then I made a call to 2, I would say, multi-billion-dollar companies that are in our area, and asked them, would you be able to build a commercial center if the city were to give you 300 acres and do it in a way that's environmentally sensitive and maybe even solar powered? Hint, hint. They said yes, they would be very interested in that.
Of course,
I asked another one
right down the street.
I asked another firm, would you be interested in building a major resort on 250 of those acres, backing up to the orange hammock itself, which is environmentally beautiful? That is a piece of property that should be preserved, but it's only it's only 2,000 acres, I think, of the 5,700. So build that, and when you build it, build an access parking area for residents of Northport to park and go into that orange hammock and enjoy the beauty of it. Would you be willing to do that? And they said yes. So, negotiating with these companies is not that hard. And whether you give it to them for free or a discount or whatever, the point is the city would have had negotiating power with 500 acres that they could have negotiated something, but we gave it away for free. And that's a shame. We do that so much lately. I think, when you were there, the direction, the vision of the city was, people knew what it was, and they understood the decisions that were being made. I don't know anymore what is going on. I don't either. I've lost the logic. It's like
I'm with
spending.
I just trying to find John's Facebook. I just want everybody that's listening to know that we're this was like a real last minute thing. So we're not actually on the radio right now. If you do hear this on the radio, it'll be basically a tape over, or a taped previous show. But the other thing is that we can't get the live streams to come up, so I can't see if there's anybody has questions or anything else. So just so you know. And I surely can't see that little tiny writing. So
that's why I got my glasses on.
I don't have the eyes anymore. I just don't. That's why I was trying to get it on the computer and not the phone, but for some reason I just can't get anything technology-wise to work for me today.
But Vanessa, you do have people watching. Yeah. I came on the stream so you could hear me. You do have people out there watching. And just for the people out in the universe that are watching, if you put in the comments and even just say hi to them, I'll be able to bring it up on the screen for them to see if you have questions or comments. Okay,
Thank you, Doll. I'm going to try searching John's name and then maybe I can find it. But yeah, so you bring up some great points, really, Pete. I got to tell you, there's so much that can be done with that small amount of acreage, but that's just, that's just the icing on the cake. We have that entire Yorkshire area that is, part of that water and sewer expansion that they're talking about. And that right there is really our future. But while we're talking about the future of trash, what about the future of Price Boulevard? Like one thing that really needs to be handled, and the money went towards water and sewer. Now, don't get me wrong, it all needs to be done. It all needs to be done. But I guess the question is, how do you not look at the huge priorities that the people in this community have determined priorities first before what you want? You know what I mean? Like, you have to look at what has been in the books. And granted, sometimes government works so slow. Sometimes it works in reverse. But, sometimes it's so slow that it's almost as if the people who are there who fought years and years and years to finally get something, they won't be around by the time the dirt is actually shoveled out of the ground. Sometimes that happens. And sometimes it takes years to get something accomplished that could be in the works 20 years prior. So to see, I guess, of course, I'm not sitting there. I didn't see all of the information, so I'm not going to point fingers. I'm not going to judge anyone's decisions. But I just can't imagine why some of that money wasn't like put in with. I know that one part was a grant, but I'm talking about specifically, the money that came in through the state specific to COVID. But that infrastructure money really should go towards Price Boulevard, that widening project, or at least a turn lane, for God's sakes. People are. I can't tell you how many times I go down that road and I'm like, you can't even get down that road. And then you've got, an ambulance or the postal driver or the school buses. It's just a mess. It's a mess. And the worst part is that then what happens is they all move out towards the end of the Toledo Blade to take Tropicare over. And now all this neighborhood's getting ticked off. So, they're doing 110 miles an hour down Tropicare, which has no sidewalks. So I don't know what their plans are for Price, but something needs to be done. Something needs to be done real soon, Well, what's your thoughts?
Well, I think you said it when you said you don't know what their plan is. And my question is why? Why don't we know what the plan is? And I'm taking the position that says there is no plan. If there was a plan, tell us what it is. And nothing happens without a plan. Nothing happens without a vision. And I don't see that anymore. Somewhere along the line, we're just doing things for the sake of doing things. It's like projects that we need to get done. We're jumping on the project, but don't understand how it fits into the full scheme. I'll give you a good example. Legacy Trail is going to go to War Mineral Springs. Okay.
All right.
And somebody somewhere, I guess, thinks this is a great idea. So people are going to get on their bikes from Sarasota or Venice and ride along the interstate of the trail, and then come down and into the trail from the Deer Prairie Creek on the, I guess it would be the east side, right?
Right.
To do what? There's nothing there. It's a park. So we're going to make it a park so I can ride my bike 20, 30 miles, 40 miles. So I can do what? There's no place to eat. There's nothing to do there. So where the planning
at Warm Mineral Springs, okay.
At Warm Mineral Springs, and yet we're building a path to get there. It's a road, actually. It's about 10 feet wide, but they're building this path right into.
So you know what? Here's another problem. You're talking about here's the problem. So when
what I'm saying, Vanessa,
was proposed. Well, I just want to kind of give you the context of that, because this is an absolute perfect example of why, one, we should never bought the thing back from the county, and two, why it's so important to make this concerted coordination and understanding. You know, that Legacy Trail expansion was proposed long time ago, back when Shannon Staub was the chairperson and I was the chairperson, and it was kind of part of that mutual benefit of purchasing the Warm Mineral Springs property together, and then having that go down, and ultimately landing in what would be, yes, a park, because it did what it intended to do, which was to preserve the springs as well as those buildings around it, but also an economic driver. That was the key. That was the point. We were going to fix Ortiz and widen it and pretty it up so that, you know, the aesthetic portion would lead to a better, higher maintenance along the area. So there was a lot of plans going in around that whole idea. Part of it was the expansion of Deer Prairie Creek and what was kind of the trail, but the idea was maybe more of a horse riding trail that they could walk, you know, all the way out through the estates, you know, how we have the Carlton and all that. So it's going to be all interconnected, because it was a little bit pre-Legacy Trail-ish, you know, it was.
Yes, it was.
Shannon was into the Legacy Trail. She got the Legacy Trail initiated. So she was in the planning stages and kind of the melting of that and finishing it up. So when we talked about this trail, there was no real thought of it connecting so much with this other trail in Venice. You know, it was more about allowing equestrian access and walking access. But the idea and vision of what Warm Mineral Springs would become was never to be a stagnant only park type of area, to have maybe mom and pop shops, to have all done within, you know, environmentally sound ways. We understand what's out there, and there's ways to do it. People do it all the time. It was just something that I guess maybe the commission at the time who were making the decisions on this long-term project just really couldn't get in their heads. But the point is that, you know, that mutual understanding of what the future should be, and such, I guess that maybe they need to do a better job at bringing the two governments together. I really don't know. But there's a question on there, something, and I can't, it's too small.
There is. And I don't have makeup on at all. I'm trying to put my avatar up. Pete Emmerich actually had a comment. The monies that went to Warm Mineral Springs, $9 million, could have gone to Price. There were other funding options for the Springs, but I was shut down 4-1. And I just wanted to do that for the audience, just to know both of them are using their cell phones, so they're not able to read the fine print that I'm bringing up on the screen.
It is so tiny. It's like
I
tiny. That's why I was trying to get on the Facebook page. I think it's on John's. Which Facebook is this? Is it on Facebook, or are you getting the comments off of YouTube? I don't know.
Let me come back up.
But
Here,
my point is that
all the comments the comments are coming up from Listen Live on WWKDW Radio, the Facebook page, on WKDW 97.5 FM Facebook page, on our YouTube page, WKDW 97.5 FM, and for my two of my own personal ones too. But just to let people know, if you put anything in the comments, I can bring it up. Like I said, they are seeing them on their cell phones, and the print is small. I normally never come up and talk like this on the screen, and if I do, I normally have makeup in case I figure it out. but just to let everybody know. Okay, and I'm off again.
Okay, and Pete's comment is well taken. We keep kicking Price Boulevard, that we keep kicking that can down the road, and the price is going to get higher and higher and higher. And I don't even know if they can do it. I don't. It's there's too many. There's so many people living there. There's going to be so much outcry, and I don't know what they're going to do with that.
It's a real good question. It's definitely a good question because, I think that, regardless of the people living there, is not really that much of a difference, only because, we did a really good job at trying to make sure that people knew about it. But in the same token, I think the cost of it is going to really be a problem, Okay, so the monies that went to War Mineral Springs, $9 million, could have gone to Price. This is an absolute fact, because what happened there was they took money that the commission in 2009 put aside and used it for the purchase of War Mineral Springs, along with money that was set aside for the water park down on Price. So those monies were set aside in the 09-10 era, and they were set aside for those capital improvements. The aquatic center had already begun its project. They had used some of the savings from the Morgan Center, and that's how they started, like the running lines to the property and excavating and doing a few other things, prepping that land for the aquatic center that we see today. So with that said, they took the money, and instead of finishing it, they took it and used it to purchase War Mineral Springs, but then also took the money that was saved for Price Boulevard. And I don't think they totally took all of it. I think they took most of it, like 90% of it, and then used that to purchase. So they kind of grabbed it from all different buckets. But you're right, because when they do that, or any government does it, they postpone that particular project for another year, another year, and another year, and the cost of doing those constructive projects just goes up and up and up. And so a perfect example was the Springhaven Drive. Well, Springhaven was supposed to go all the way out to what is the name of that place over there on Pan American? So it would have gone all the way out behind, like, the Jockey Club, kind of, and then over to Springhaven Drive, and then in between schools. So that was supposed to, or in between the Morgan Center and the school, the Heron Creek Middle School, and it was supposed to be widened, and it was supposed to go down, and it was an alternate route that if something happened there at the school, or if something happened on price, there was an alternate net route to get out of that area, because there really is no other way.
No way out.
And so they postponed it. And then when it came time to look at it again, they found out that these drainage ditches that they originally put in when it was first prepped for this widening are no longer allowed. Got to go back in, got to re-widen it, got to put bigger ones in, right? They go put the bigger ones in. By the time it gets around, the commission votes it down to get rid of it, and which is okay, because you were kind of forced in that corner because the construction price went up dramatically, like dramatically. So it was so much larger than what the money was set aside. There was no way. There was no way at the time that it could be done. But it's another example of how, if you don't stick with that plan, the only problem is you might as well just say goodbye to it, because people keep talking about Tropicare and the sidewalks. And, you know, they just postponed it. Well, postponing is essentially saying you're not going to do it. That's what it is. Because by the time you get around to making that your priority, it's no longer equitable. It's not something you can do. So, you know,
well, you know, you started this conversation with P3s, public-private partnerships. And I don't know of any government that is successful in delivering to its residents what the residents are looking for that doesn't utilize public-private partnerships. There is a segment of the population that says a public-private partnership is corrupt. And I will say there are some that are, and there are some that most aren't, but some that are. But let's not build around those. Let's build around the good ones. And there is never a discussion about how we're going to get money into the government, and the only way you get it right now is taxes. Well, there is another way, and it's public-private partnerships. But I'm wondering, Vanessa, and you've been around, I think, longer than me.
Too long.
Yeah, right. How do you see any more of a future for Northport in that area with is there any land left? Is there anything where they could create some public-private partnerships that could generate significant dollars? Because I'm wondering if there are any left.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, we're only, 30% built out? There's so much land.
But I'm saying for public-private partnerships, you need commercial. It's got to be commercial property.
Rezone.
How much is left?
People rezone all the time. There's nothing that prevents you from rezoning specific areas to commercial, as long as it all works within your comp plan. It's not that hard. It really isn't. It just costs money.
But you rezone one of two ways, right? You rezone by having the landowner request it, or the government does. I mean, well, a landowner can request.
You're thinking of annexation. You're thinking of annexation.
No, a landowner can request. If I owned 20 lots, I can come to the city and say I'd like to rezone that commercial, and if I'd have an opportunity to at least present my case. But the other way is eminent domain, which I don't think anybody wants.
That's a change in ownership over to a government eminent domain.
Right.
The rezone is allowing you to do something commercially on what would otherwise be set aside for residential. Okay. So, for example, the areas that they're talking about out in Yorkshire area that they're going to actually use for these transfer stations may need a purchase of residential property, which will turn around and have to be rezoned as government use or commercial, depending on how this P3 / is it the city that takes it. So that's what I mean by that. But anything can be rezoned. Within context, you can't turn around and have, 90% residential and you choose to go in the middle and put, I don't know, a daycare up that is like 3 stories high, and it's in all these small 1-story high homes. You know what I mean? It's got to be, it has to be, what are they called? Connective to
Oh, and it's a lengthy process.
No, it is.
So I'm just saying the big chunks of land that we have are going. They're being spoken for now. They've got plans going on them. And so if the city wanted to create some public-private partnerships, are there any chunks that are currently zoned commercial large enough to have an impact? And I just see us giving those away or not doing anything with the ones that we could do something.
I see what you're saying. You're talking about large parcels that had been mingled. Yeah. So, yeah. You know, anytime we ever had to do a project, we would have to purchase residential lots around. I mean, that's how we got our Atwater Park out there, was to purchase the properties around it. And that is a very time-consuming issue. You're absolutely right. As far as large parcels are concerned, there are still some city-owned properties that may be considered large. Not in the hundreds of acres, not like, you know, any of the others, but in the same token, I don't think we ever really did own anything of that significant size. So, but I don't think that should prevent anyone from doing public-private partnerships, really. I think that, I think what we're going to see is those public-private partnerships are going to work on the individual basis at the time. You know what I mean? Like what's going on at that time with that particular project, that we can work out the needs with a public-private partnership. I don't know how to explain it. Kind of like today, we're talking about the Yorkshire thing, you know?
Yeah. But I'm talking about like let's look at what does Northport need right now that would probably get 90% of the residents agreeing to it happening. And I think you'd agree that the answer could be a hospital. Okay, we're the largest city in the Tri-County area. Venice has 2 or 3. Everybody around us has one, and we don't. You know, why can't we do something to make that happen? And that will stimulate economic metabolism with more medical resources coming into the area to be near that hospital. And I don't see those chunks. The people that have those chunks, they're getting now they're into planning stages that don't include those. You're going to see more housing and whatever. That's what they're building. And I question whether we're going to be able to sustain the city on straight housing with no, you know, significant commercial property, with commercial projects.
Yeah, no, you can't. I mean, that's an absolute. You have to have, you know, that was kind of the whole point of having West Villages, aka Welland Park, was that it was going to create that balance, because, you know, every healthy municipality has a certain percentage of commercial and a certain percentage of residential. And then they break that commercial down into, you know, more of a heavy commercial, light commercial, neighborhood commercial, you know. So the point is that, you know, when we looked really, really hard at the city overall back in the early 2000s, well, actually it was late 90s at first. It was realized by our planning manager at the time, Sam Jones, that, you know, there is a percentage base of commercial we are in huge lack of. We're going to be in big trouble in 25 years if we don't create more of an even percentage between our ratio of the residential versus commercial. And so, you know, working on the Kels Ranch, the Orange Hammock, you know, the West Villages and other little annexations that went on during that time frame was all in an effort to not only diversify the tax base that would create a different type of housing market, but to most importantly increase the commercial land that was available to use. So that's why you'll see when we talked with West Villages at the time, you know, all those years, every time I say, okay, I need to know where we at on this commercial. And so they finally did kind of a calculation to show that they're keeping with the commercial. It's just a little bit different. But you're absolutely right. If we don't start looking in a larger scale to fix these ratio issues, which we've done with giving properties away or having nonprofits come in and purchase these items, these large scale properties. Because remember, if a nonprofit purchases a property, they're exempt from certain taxes.
Yep.
So that doesn't help us.
No, and if they purchase it for a government agency, then we don't get any taxes, which is what happened with Orange Hammock. But that's water under the bridge. I'm just wondering where that balance is going to come from. You guys were so strategic in your thinking, and it is long term. So you got to catch up to it. But you had, I think, you had the right vision in there, and you were putting the chess pieces in place. Now that we've lost that, where are we going to get it back from? How does that factor in?
When you get a planning manager.
Boy, why doesn't Northwood have one? I can't understand that.
Because we didn't have a city manager.
Who was the guy? There was a guy that was your planning director. Might have been a little bit before your time, but not much. But it was a planning director. You got a city of 104 square. No, I'm thinking of a different guy then. There was another guy, director of, maybe it wasn't planning. Sam did a great job. I look at this city.
Yeah, we had Sam Jones and we had Scott Williams, who was director of the building department. That's all we had. And then we had different directors of all the different, because remember, we didn't really get organized until 2001. As far as making sure that everything was kind of districted out. I mean, we had the districts, but things didn't really get a huge study and in place until maybe it was 2000. It was like right as I was coming in. But point is that if you don't have leadership, and this is kind of one of the things I used when I ran, was that if you don't have a good foundation. And I know we're running out of time, Marie. We have like 6 minutes left, but just if you don't have a good foundation, you don't have, the management, you don't have the directors, you don't have a city manager, you don't have a consistent commission who's making educated decisions. You don't have, chaos, drama. All kinds of stuff. If you don't have that gone and the managers and stuff in place, then how can you say you have a solid foundation? Well, if you don't have a solid foundation, you don't have strong walls, you don't have a strong roof, you don't have anything, pretty much. It's going to fall apart. So point is that you can't really look at these last couple of years and say, well, this is going to determine our future. I'm not. This was 2 years. Thank God, only 2 years, because if I remember correctly, the last time we went through some sort of chaos, it was like 6 years or 8, if you remember. So we had 2 years of kind of instability, and now that we have a city manager and we're getting people in place, hopefully, that I think that we'll see some big changes, some long-term strategic planning, some big thinking ideas coming to the table within the next year or two. That I truly do believe. I think that our city manager in place now, I am really impressed with him. I love his background. I think his background is just phenomenal. And I do see him having that big picture ability to see that we need that diverse kind of commercial, residential, all pieces of the pie in order to be a healthy community for the future. So I think that we need to give him, we talked about this before. I think it was me and John talked about it. The biggest problem he was going to have when he came in was really getting the employees and the staffing in place, because so many had left. So many are gone. They're gone. Once our past city manager left, a lot of them were not sticking around. The point being is that we have to get our house in order. And then I think that we've got a great future ahead of us. But the house
and
in order is going to be a
well said.
real issue.
Well said. Your confidence reinvigorates me.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, you stay closer to this than I do. I used to be a lot closer, but I'm not as close as I used to be. So
I don't know. I think a lot of it's just ingrained like nonsense that runs through my head after being there for so many years,
yeah.
But
Yep.
in the same token, I try to keep up with the stuff. And then of course, if I get busy now, I don't have to.
There you go.
That's the best part, right? I love that part. Like,
That's right.
hey, did you see the show? Nope, sure didn't.
You go to that commission meeting? Nope, didn't make it.
Nope,
I always say, I always say my dream is to be a gentleman farmer. A gentleman farmer can get up and pick the eggs, and he can get up and milk the cows, and he can get up and mow the and spread the seeds, but he doesn't have to. That's the key. And that's kind of like where I'm at now in retirement. The nice thing is you wake up in the morning and it's early and you say, no, I don't think so, and you go back to sleep.
Yeah.
It's a good time of life.
I'm telling you, I'm enjoying the fact that I don't have to be so involved, and I don't have to be involved in the drama either. So, which I never really was, but I just don't block. But I don't have patience for it. But honestly, I do see the future bright. I really do. I think that once you have that solid head, the solid foundation. Now we can create the rest of the foundation that'll become solid, and then we'll see those real, true future kind of hard, data-informed, educated decisions, and with confidence will items start be brought up with real backup. So I think that this city manager is going to do great things if he can handle the stress. But anyways, so Pete, do we have anything that we need to talk about in wrapping up? Because we got our 2-minute warning. And first of all, I just want to say thank you, Marie. We couldn't have done this without you. This really, truly was like a last minute, throw it together. I don't know how the heck we're going to do this kind of thing. So Marie, you are an absolute godsend. And if nobody knows, she really is the kind of the spine of this entire animal we call WKW.
There she is.
Real
Marie,
talk.
come on
there
board
she
for a
is.
minute. Marie, come online for a second. There we go.
I'm here.
So
I actually have an avatar up for me.
Okay. Well, I got to say, on this day after Thanksgiving, I give thanks for Marie. She's done a fantastic job. She's always here. She makes sure we show up on time and our systems are working. And you're just awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys. And just as a reminder to everybody, Giving Tuesday here at the radio station, we are the Center for Southwest Florida. What is Giving Tuesday? It's a global generosity movement powered by the power of social media and collaboration, unleashing the power of people to transform their communities in the world, just like Vanessa and Peter are doing. And it's just whether you're even smiling at and helping people like a neighbor or a stranger out, just showing up for an issue or people we care about, give something of what we have to those who need our help. Every act of generosity counts, and everyone has something to give.
All right. Thank you. That's a great program.
Thank you, Marie.
This Tuesday.
Yep.
Be there or be square.
Okay.
And
it's all done through social media, right, Marie?
Well, we'll be live the way that we are right now, but we'll be live on the radio, and I'll have different nonprofits and organizations from around the area, different companies and people that give back that a lot of the normal public does not know about. There are people that give back in the community that do things and they're quiet about it, but it impacts the whole, it impacts cities and communities too. So, and right here, John Cook says, keeps a good fight, he said, but I think he meant fight, up 4 North Newport. I'm kind of sad I had to leave, but I like it up here in Otter Creek in the country. So thank you, John Cook.
Thanks, John.
Okay, so
thank
wrap
you,
it
Marie.
up.
Okay.
Yep, thank you, Marie. And next time you will see John, I promise, unless of course he calls me again. And we'll just leave with thank you all, and mostly we're all thankful for our listeners. So,
All right.
Lee, you take
Thank
care,
you,
man.
Vanessa.
Give my love to Eileen.
I sure will. Bye-bye.
Talk soon. Ciao.